Hello, found footage fans, and welcome to We Found a Tape.
Tape Talks.
Welcome to Tape Talks, a special new series from We Found a Tape. Here we sit down with directors, filmmakers and cinematographers to deep dive into the creative process behind found footage filmmaking, from writing and shooting to the journey of bringing these unique stories to life.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Tape Talks. Today we're joined by a very special guest. You may know him from the TAHOE JOE franchise, but also from his other work like The Summer We Died and Midnight Feature. We're joined today by Dillon Brown. Thank you very much for joining us, Dillon.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here.
Hell yeah, we're really excited to talk about the TAHOE JOE franchise that you've built upon with yourself and Mike Rock, and then just your other work in general. With TAHOE JOE specifically, of course, it's the big elephant in the background there, as you can see. What were some of your main influences when you were making the original TAHOE JOE? Like, what were some of your main influences for that?
So growing up over here kind of in Bigfoot country, which it's not like nearly as prominent as say like Oregon or Washington, but the Sierra Nevadas definitely have their own kind of Bigfoot lore and stuff. And for me, I thought if I'm gonna make a Bigfoot movie, we got to try and go at it in a certain way where it doesn't come across like one of those really, really bad Bigfoot movies that are out there, because it's like for every one good Bigfoot movie, there's like 40 really like suspect things, and so, it just seemed like found footage is the perfect medium for that, because it's like you're always seeing documentaries, you're always seeing the people's grainy footage of what they think might be, the big man. And then Eduardo Sanchez doing Exists was just like, this is what it could be like if you had a big budget, and a really good crew. It's like this genre works so well. And so I got a hold of Mike and I was like, look, man, I've always wanted to make a Bigfoot movie. And I have this idea, and he's looking at me like we didn't know each other that well at the time of the first movie. We had just done one movie together. And so we were becoming friends, but there was no trust yet, and I think Mike was going, I don't know if I want to get on board with like a silly Bigfoot movie. So I filmed the first like 5 minutes of TAHOE JOE, just so he could sort of see like how I was going to build it like a faux doc. And I don't think he was expecting me to go as like true to life as I was going, where it's like playing myself at my house, like trying to really build this world that was as close to reality with then just this like fictional element of Bigfoot. And once he saw it, he's like, oh, I'm totally down with this. He's like, this is a great idea. And then it just kind of went from there. It was like, I was obviously using stuff like Legend of Boggy Creek, and even like my favorite found footage movie of all time is Cold Ground. And it's this like really wonderful period piece, and it's got werewolves or something instead of Bigfoot, but it was just like the way they filmed it. I thought this could totally work, and so that was also a big influence on kind of as we were making the movie. I was watching other movies and saying, this is what they did really well, so then maybe what could we borrow from that to try and inject into our story. And I have no reservations about saying that either. Like I would not be the filmmaker I am if I didn't have all these other things to look at and study and say, this is what works and this is what doesn't work. And let's try that or not try that in our stuff.
Brilliant. Yeah, Cold Ground's one I've heard of, but I actually haven't seen it. So that's one I'm definitely going to add to the ever-growing list of found footage that is out there.
It will make you feel so cold. I've never seen a movie that actually the atmosphere that they're in, you feel that at home. Like it just feels miserable and cold and like winter. And if you watch it in the dark, it's just chef's kiss. It's so good.
Wow. It's just turning. So I'm in Canada, and it's just turning winter. So maybe it's the perfect time to check out Cold Ground.
Absolutely.
But I'm in South Texas, so hopefully the if I watch it, it'll bring the winter to me.
Yeah, right. You could use a little bit of that.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like you could just play that on repeat in the month of July, and you could probably just like cool your body temperature down.
Hopefully, man, these temps, man, I'm done with them.
Oh yeah. And of course, you mentioned there that found footage is such a perfect vehicle for cryptids, really in general. A Bigfoot, it's one of the more tropes that gives found footage a bad name to some, but it's such an easy way to get an end to the film industry, is how a lot of people see found footage. What were some of the challenges, especially early on, and just as the series progressed? What were some of the challenges that you ran into with getting TAHOE JOE made in the way that you wanted, and also just made in general? What were some of those challenges that you ran into?
In the first one, it was kind of learning to be in front of the camera. Even though I was behind the camera, I still was in front of the camera a lot, and I had no acting experience. That was my thing. Was I had done a couple of found footage movies, and I was just writing and directing. So biggest thing for me was learning to like take stuff Mike was saying, and he would lob up softballs. He's a really good actor, so he would lob up these things to keep the conversations going, or to inject a little logic into maybe why we were making a decision. And I had to learn to just trust that he was going to set me up, and then to just kind of trust my gut and go with whatever my first reaction was. Stick with it and go from there. So I'd say that was big. Definitely shooting at night in the actual woods was really big, because not only was it super dangerous, because I'm running around out there with just a light on the camera so we could keep it as dark as possible, but we were actually on a hillside. We were up at like probably 6,500 foot what is the word I'm looking for, elevation,
Right.
and so I'm winded because I'm up there high, much higher than where I'm at in Reno. And so I'm like gassed, and I'm trying to keep up with a former Green Beret that's in really good shape. And so, yeah, there was definitely some challenges there. I think on Mike's end, it was also trust on him that I was going to take the footage and I was going to turn it into something cool. Cause I think for him, not seeing what I was capturing on camera, at the time, Mike didn't really have a director eye. Mike was hardcore acting. He was really good at coordinating and getting people together. So I wanted to credit him as a co-director, because I wouldn't have been able to get half the stuff done if it wasn't for him being able to pull resources and all that. But Mike had never made anything or edited anything at that point. So I think for him, he was probably questioning a lot of like, what the heck is Dillon doing out there with the camera? Like, what is this even going to look like? And then when I would cut stuff and send it to him, it's like I could kind of see that relationship growing and that trust. And then I've said it on a couple other shows, but I'll reiterate it. One of the challenging things about the first movie was pretty much from the time we go into the woods, just the three of us, myself, Mike, and Shane, until the end, we did that live. We did the whole thing in one day and night, and we edited it live from the woods. So I was like dropping it into the timeline and doing like a live edit as we were filming it, because we didn't know what was really going to happen at the end. We didn't know if it was going to play out how we wanted. So we didn't want to back ourselves into a corner by saying we're going to go out there and then we're going to have to do XYZ. We thought, let's go out there, and then whatever happens. And then I could be editing it as we're going, which would keep us on track. So that was wild. I'm like, at the end of the first movie, when I'm on a laptop in the car talking about uploading footage, I was legitimately dropping footage that we had just shot that night in there. So there's this really cool meta thing going on of that happening while we were filming this movie. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's a good point, because throughout, it's almost like a common theme throughout the other two films as well. There is like a meta element of grounding the realism between both of your characters, who are yourselves in reality, and also finding a way to showcase your other things that you're working on as well. as well as the intense nature of trying to find Bigfoot at the same time. So yeah, that's definitely it definitely comes across throughout, and it's a common theme that I noted while watching. The meta element is just, you don't see it too much in found footage these days, so it's definitely a welcomed element for sure.
Yeah, it's cool. We just said it's fun to keep kind of harkening back to real life things, because we never really know what's going to happen in our actual lives. And so it's cool to say, hey, well, we're going to do another movie. Oh, by the way, like Mike got engaged, or I bought a house, or whatever we did. So it's like, well, let's just, if we're going to be filming, let's not worry about ignoring those things that are happening. Let's just use those as part of the plot to kind of drive maybe how we would go about this story with these things actually happening in our real lives. And it also gets us out of a jam. Like if I was in a fender bender and my car was dented, I might as well not try to avoid that. If I'm going to have to use the car in the film, I might as well just bring it into the story, so it's there. Nobody questions what happened, and then we move on, right? So we were kind of trying to use a lot of that stuff to our advantage, so we wouldn't have to explain our way out of certain things that we were doing.
Yeah, it's a very interesting way of doing it, and really again in that punk rock found footage mentality is just whatever happens. We use it. Whatever we film, we use. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it definitely translates, and it's such a fine point that even though it's real life, like I feel like people when they're making these found footage films like can struggle, right? So it's good to see it successfully done. So.
Absolutely. I'm curious, were there any revisions to what Tahoe Joe was going to look like, or did you already have a set idea of what you wanted him to look like?
You're talking creature design?
Yes, creature design. Correct.
Yeah, so I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because this is like the funniest story how this all happened. So the original suit from the first movie I built in my garage out here where I'm at. And it was like a repurposed ghillie suit, and it was a Planet of the Apes monkey mask that I cut the mouth open in, put some different teeth in, repainted it, and boom, we had a Bigfoot, right? And it was horrible. It was awful. It was so bad. But we thought, okay, we're not going to hardly show him. He's going to be as little as possible. We're going to do sound effects, and we're going to kind of take the Jaws method here. And so it was okay. Like, it worked, but it was bothering me and Mike enough to where we're like, if we're going to do a second one, first of all, the suit from the first one was horrible. It wasn't shown enough because we couldn't show it enough, and it's fallen apart. So we thought, there's enough fans of this first movie that if we do a second one, we can definitely take some of the money we've made from the first movie and let's not pay, ourselves anything. Let's not pay actors. If we can get actors that can just work because they want to work, let's do that. And let's tell everybody we would like to take all the money and dump it into a new Bigfoot suit, so we have like a real cool creature design. And so that's where we came up with, and spoiler alert, I mean, I'm okay with talking about it because the two movies have been out for as long, but that's where we came up with the plot for Tahoe Joe 2, being that you never actually saw Joe in the first movie, that it was those poachers running around in those bad suits, trying to keep us out of the area. And then Tahoe Joe himself finally shows up at the end. And that's when we were really able to start having this much better suit. I mean, the body suit back here is the same. But then again, I ran into a problem when we were making part 2, where the original face sculpt and the paint job was not defined enough. It was really flat and it was too dark. So anytime he was shown in the daytime, it just was like a muddled gray mess, and I hated it. There was not enough definition. So Mike and I were kind of talking like, well, it doesn't really matter because we're probably never going to do a third movie anyway. And then eventually we took enough, fan kind of interaction and stuff, and we're like, okay, let's go ahead and do this. But if we would have to do something about the Joe thing. So ended up having another headpiece done and changed the color, gave him some white. You can see the end of it there. Gave him kind of like some aging, some beard stuff going on. And that finally, I felt like finally Joe got his look. And as much as he's changed kind of throughout the films, I felt like because the second movie, he's pretty much shown in night vision or in dark enough. Nobody was really going to notice the difference between the change from that and in the third movie. And then honestly, we maybe overdid it in the third movie, but I was like, you know what? It's the third one in a found footage Bigfoot movie. I'm showing my Bigfoot. I'm not hiding him anymore. Joe is going to be the star. Like, let's give this guy some screen time and just let him do his thing. And I'm glad we did, because it's always a thing of mine where in a good found footage movie, maybe you don't see the creature and it's okay. It's scary and it does its job. But like 90% of the time I'm watching these movies and I don't get anything. And I'm just like, where's the payoff? Like, give me a bad monster, for crying out loud. I want to see something. So we just made the decision to, like, let's give the big man his screen time for our last hurrah here. And I'm glad we did, because I think he turned out pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure did. While you were filming in the woods, did you ever have any of those moments where, like, what was that? What was that noise? You know, things like that.
You know, man, I will tell you, every time we were out there at night and I was running around like way out there trying to make the footage scary, when I was doing like because it's like Mike and I are always getting separated at some point out there, you know. And I think because part of me was in the moment, and even though I've spent a ton of time, I mean, my whole life has been spent in the woods. I've always been like a hunter and a fisherman, and so it's sounds out there don't bother me. But when you are making a Bigfoot movie and you're acting scared, you can get yourself definitely psyched out. And there was a couple times that I'm like, damn, I hope Mike's not that far from me here, because I'm a little bit freaked out, and I got nothing except a camera on me, you know. So yeah, I had some moments, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was asking because, you know, you can get into that mindset where you're filming what you're filming, and then it starts to kind of turn on you a little bit, and the psychology comes in where, okay, things are happening now. This is not just a movie anymore. What's happening? Me too. I'm a fisherman. I like to go out camping sometimes too. But you know, if you're fishing out there at night or things like that, you know, you're out there by yourself. You're hearing things. You're questioning things. So that mindset can come into play, and you can start to freak yourself out.
Yeah, you know, I remember a guy that I worked with years ago. He had said something along the lines of, when you're out in the woods, there's only a very small percentage of the time that you actually see a predator like a bear or a mountain lion or something, or a wolf. But he said that number increases tenfold on the amount of times a predator has seen you in the woods. And I'm like, that's horrifying to think about. That is so scary. Thank you so much for telling me that.
Now it's going to make me think. Thank you for that.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, we're found footage fans, so we're kind of the more and more we watch these, more and more we realize what not to do when going out camping, or areas to learn, you know, where not to go and things like that. So.
Well, I'll say the number one thing that anybody should take from any of these movies is just put the damn camera down and run away. You don't need to keep filming.
Exactly.
And in the third one, one thing I noticed, and this is always something for me is always that justification of the camera being on, and you know, things like that. And there was a character that had a handy cam either taped or tied to an axe, and that's the first time I'd seen that, and I was like, wait, is that guy got an axe? Is that a camera on that axe?
Yeah, so that was Ian Van Gool from House of Ghouls podcasts, and
Yes.
He's just an awesome horror content creator. And so Ian, we had handed him some stuff, and we had this huge box of weapons when we took everybody out there for that scene. And I said, hey, just go ahead and outfit yourselves, grab weapons, whatever you guys want, whatever you're comfortable with, like, have fun. And because I had, like, you know, it's like you get on the production set and you want to talk to everybody and you want to be involved, but it's like the main focus becomes, I've got to get the camera set up, and I've got to make sure that, you know, we do like a safety walk, and then I got to make sure Bigfoot's all ready to go. So I told those guys, like, just go through the stuff, get yourselves dressed, grab your own props. I don't care. And that was Ian's idea, to strap that little handy cam that we had in the prop box on there. And there was some talk about doing some axe cam footage, but it just became really hard to pull off because the camera that he had in the film was just a dummy cam. It didn't actually work. So then we would have had to somehow figure out how to like get this onto an axe, and it was like that's not gonna happen, you know. So you know, we just decided to leave it as is. But I thought it was definitely a funny idea that he did that. And we actually our clothing merch guy, Gore Clown, his name's Seamus, he goes by the name Seamus Belial, and he runs Gore Clown Clothing. He did an axe cam shirt that is a drawing of the axe with the handy cam attached to it. And so people see me wearing the shirt and they're like, is that a band? Like, I've never heard of that. What a weird thing. And I just think it's so funny because I'm like, I don't even want to explain it to you. I'm going to have to somehow bring up that it's a small inside joke in a Bigfoot found footage movie. And they're going to probably look at me like, okay, cool, and walk away. So I just say, you know, you have to Google it.
One of the deepest cuts out there.
Yeah, right.
And it's always so fun. I do find it very interesting when I'm watching some of these movies, like the things that you'll notice that, you know, probably at the time that they didn't really put that much focus in. There's never really like a, oh yeah, we purposely did this, you know, for you to do this. It's usually like, no idea how we came up with that. That's just, you know, from, you know, 5 days worth of shooting, and like, you know, we had a final day where we got to, you know, figure out some stuff. It's always that, and I think those are some of the best. Some
of the best things that we've done in any of our movies, it seemed like were last second decisions that, you know, like we all kind of came up with, or maybe an actor said something and we went, man, that's a good idea. And then we would start rolling with it and it would change, you know, some things at the last moment.
Absolutely. And we see that, you know, through TAHOE JOE, through the franchise, and really stepping into that third movie, you know, the stakes are increasingly higher and higher as the franchise goes along. Were there any avenues that you wanted to take the story but ultimately went in a different direction on, in terms of, you know, as we've progressed, you know, we see them out in the city landscape, like plot points like that? Was there anything that you were like, in the movie originally it was going to be completely different? Was there any moments throughout with that?
You know, so we always wanted to bring Joe to the suburbs or into like the urban setting, because my thing is like, if you're going to justify a third movie, it's got to be where you say, okay, it's time to go Freddy Krueger Dream Warriors, right? Like you got to go into uncharted territory, and you got to be a little wilder with it. And so for me, it was always going to be, let's use King Kong kind of as our guide here, with like this creature that's out of place, you know, and then definitely kind of the little alluding to the fact that he had kind of the bond with the, you know, King Kong has the beauty with Andaro. It was like, well, we had the cute little forest ranger girl that has spent some time up there, you know, with Bigfoot. And so I think the only thing that really did change significantly from that was, despite all that stuff happening, Mike and I originally had ideas where, you know, we were going to be like taken captive by these mercenary guys. There was going to be like a fight in a big deuce and a half army truck that we were trying to get a hold of. And it was going to be kind of centered more with us being taken by these guys while we were looking for Joe. And then Tori, the female character, she would be kind of coming to like the rescue essentially with Joe to come free us. That was like this one kind of early idea, was what if we get captured, and then, you know, that has to happen. But then just logistically, it was not really coming together. We ended up having a problem with some of the scheduling to be able to get that truck that we wanted to use. And we're like, okay, well, maybe we could do this or that. And finally, it just sort of clicked one day where we thought, let's just do what we're good at. We'll bring Joe into the city, but we're still going to have our flair of getting back out into the woods and then filming, kind of like how the others are done. So that's why we ultimately made the decision to go back. But we did want to use some different locations that we had never shown off before. So it was really fun to go up to those big giant tunnels, and the ending of the movie takes place like right where the Donner Party incident happened. If you guys are familiar with the Donner Party story, essentially a whole bunch of settlers had tried to make their way into California back in the 1800s, and they got snowed in, and they had to eat each other to survive. And the adults ate the children, and then the men ate the women, and then the men started eating each other. There was stories of like them starting to have weird belief that if they ate each other, they would absorb each other's power to be able to survive the winter longer. Horrifying stuff. And so we actually filmed like right up where that happened, which was really cool for me because I grew up in this area. So it's just been this historical landmark for years. So yeah, yes and no. It's like we knew where the movie was going to take place, and there was little things that changed. We maybe thought about having some more stuff in town than we actually did, but I'm not going to lie, running around doing guerrilla style filmmaking with a Bigfoot is a good way to draw a lot of attention from the cops. So it definitely made us be a little careful about what we were going to do and how much we were going to do with that.
Yeah. And what was there any interaction with any police or people in the public that are like, what the hell are you doing? Was there ever any of that?
There were a couple people. In fact, this was funny. We were up at those tunnels, and I have all these guys dressed in tactical gear with fake firearms. And here comes a church youth group on a hike, a wilderness hike together with a whole bunch of little kids. And so Mike and I quickly ran to go find their leaders there and tell them like, hey, none of these guns up here were real. These are all prop stuff. The people covered in blood, it's not real blood. It's fake stuff. Like, I'm so sorry. I hope this doesn't freak all you guys out. And so then when we told them what we were doing, a couple times when I was directing down low, like on the snowbank, we were doing some stuff. We turned and looked back, and up on this walking trail, there were a lot of people lined up watching kind of what we were doing. So, nobody that really threw us off by any means, but there was definitely some looky-loos out there that got a free show to some stuff we were doing.
Wow. That's so good. Of all the things I thought you were going to say, it wouldn't have been a church youth group that are on a trail. That's one of the best, Tahoe Joe lore stories out there.
I just wish that we'd had our Bigfoot dressed up, because I would have said, why don't you run out there and scare them first, and then we'll explain what's going on.
That would have been perfect. Oh man, that's fun. I can imagine it's never a dull day when it's film footage filmmaking.
No, it's with us, Mike and I have said from the beginning, the minute that this stops being fun and two buddies hanging out, we're just not going to do it anymore. It's just, I got an entirely other career that I do full time with the Army, and so this side of filmmaking is just it's just a hobby for me. It's a way to decompress. It's a way to get my artistic stuff out there. And so if it starts to feel like work, I'm going to get out of it real quick, because the last thing I need is more work on top of, work. And so we try to make our sets like as fun as possible and just have so much fun. And we really try not to take too seriously. It's like, if something doesn't go right, we just get together and we reassess and we go, okay, this isn't working. There's a reason why. Let's just change it up until it does work. And then we just go. And we've never really had any issues in any of the movies we've made. I mean, yeah, there's been like a couple of times we've had some actors that we cut last minute and brought somebody else in because they didn't show up or something. But really, for the most part, it's never a dull moment, but also like really relaxing and cathartic too.
Nice. Yeah, that's really good to hear. It's definitely a common theme throughout from all the filmmakers that we speak to. Like it's always such a juxtaposition, because it's such scary stuff that people are watching and the end product, but actually the making of it is really the actual fun part of everyone coming together as a community, all forming for one goal. So yeah, it's really awesome to hear.
Absolutely.
And with with sort of going on some of the challenges there, were there any particular scenes, and this isn't specific to TAHOE JOE, but really just any of your films that you've worked on, were there ever any scenes in particular that you were amazed that you were able to pull off? Whether that's either a practical effect or a choreographed stunt, was there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, two of them for sure. One from TAHOE JOE 3, we wanted to do a good mauling. You know, I needed like a Bigfoot attack, and so we happened to meet this guy Colin, and Colin, he's missing his legs from the knees down, and he hit us up and said, if you ever need a guy to get his legs ripped off, I would love to be in a horror movie. And I'm like, brother, do I have a role for you? And so getting to do that was so cool because to me, it was doing filmmaking how the classic filmmakers did it. It was using real people and effects work and stuff to create a horrific effect like that. And so, not having to build fake legs to get ripped off or do CGI or anything, and just actually utilizing somebody's body that he very much has embraced, and that's who he is, and he's willing to laugh at what I would consider misfortune. He laughs at it and offers it up there as, I would love to see that happen in a movie. I think that's the coolest thing ever. And so when we did that one, I was just like, man, this is so cool. This was like old school filmmaking, and we've got this amputee who is so gung-ho for this that he's making us just have a blast. And we get to rip his legs off, like this was just like, that was crazy. And then in The Summer We Died, that movie was an interesting shoot for me because it was a movie that I wanted to make deep down, in my heart. It was just a movie about youth and revolt, and a kind of a slasher film, but also like a skater punk movie. And it's like, it doesn't, and I don't know if you guys have seen that one or not, but it's not really found footage, but it's also shot kind of docu-style. I just did like fourth wall breaking. I did all this stuff purely because I wanted this movie to not have a label. I thought it'd be fun to just make a movie, and this is what it is. And wasn't worried about rules or anything. And that one had a head stomping scene that we had go down in there that I didn't know if I was going to get to pull off. And so I had built this head, and I had another buddy of mine who's part of the Horror Dads, Dustin Tamplin, and Dustin does really good effects work. And I was like, hey man, like I want to crush this head. I just don't know how we're going to do it. And it looks nothing like my actress who's going to get her head stomped here. But I was like, are you down to come try it? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So we get in this like spillway for a drainage thing, and we lay our actress down and we shoot our original plates with her panicking and doing all this stuff. Then we dress the fake head and dummy up with her shirt and a wig that was the same haircut. And Dustin packs this mannequin head full of hamburger and fake blood and chocolate syrup and all this nasty stuff. And we had cut the eyes out and put 2 fake eyeballs in it. And our actress's actual boyfriend put on a pair of combat boots and got to just go cut hounds smashing the head on this thing. And we filmed it, and it was like the very first take, he stomps, the eyes blow out of it, the shit blows out the back of it, and we had this amazing head stomp that just happened to work. And we had like one shot at it, and it worked. And it ended up being like my favorite thing in the whole movie was this head crush. And it was old school. It was shoot her looking at the camera, place the dummy in the exact same position, and just do a quick cut with the boot coming down to where you can't really see where the cut is. It swapped the dummy out for her. And it's just nothing more than editing trickery really that pulled that off. And I've been super happy about that one because I had other filmmakers telling me it was done really well and it was a really good effect that looked expensive. And I knew that I only spent about $20 on it. And so I was like, oh, that just feels so good to hear that. So
that's awesome. I haven't seen Summer We Died yet, but it's one I'm definitely curious on. Yeah, it gives me reminiscence of like the old Trauma films.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Like they're notorious for no budget, and one of the tricks that it was in the first Toxic Avenger where they run over the guy and it's just a watermelon. They just use a watermelon that they put a mask on, or like, you know, made it to look like a person, and they just drove over it and made it look like they'd smash someone's head. So
It's so good. You know, I have been learning more and more that with film, you can show like one frame of something to the human eye, and people will think they saw way more than they did, because their brains will put together,
yeah.
you know, a lot more than what was actually shown. So, you know, my thing is, if you can do just enough to kind of allude to what's happening, you can trick people into thinking you did a lot more than what you really did. And it's such a good technique, and it's great for guys like me. You know, it's like, even with TAHOE JOE 3, I think our budget was still under, it was like around $4,000. You know, we did that whole movie. We did the first TAHOE JOE for $800.
Yeah,
So it's just like, we don't really ever take much out there. It's usually, what can we beg, borrow, and steal, you know, to make these movies with. And then we've just noticed that, like, the more movies we make and we put out there, the more people are willing to jump on and say, hey, I just saw this and I thought it was so cool. If you ever need a cabin, like I have one, or you ever need an old, you know, rat rod, I have one you can use. It's just like, or hey, I'm missing 2 legs. If you want to show a guy get his legs ripped off, like, people come to us and offer these things, and it's so cool.
That's the best. That's the biggest compliment to ever receive. Like, I would love for you to kill me in a film. I love that. No, that's so cool. It's such a fun, practical effects are such a fun thing to see, and you know, most people, you know, obviously do digital effects, and it's common even in found footage. You know, that's how they'll segment some of these things with just CG, and
yeah,
it's great to see practicality coming
yeah,
out.
I mean, I've got some stuff behind me here, just multiple things. Because, you know, it's like, with our budget, CG's just not going to look good. It won't. And so I'm just like, whatever we can get in camera is fine, because even if it's way too much or it looks too much like a mask, like, I can put glitches, I can do color correcting, I can drop the lighting. Like, there's so many ways to hide that. And I think people just appreciate it. And especially like our actors, or even myself, I appreciate working with something right there on set that I can reach out and touch. And I think our actors, when we were doing TAHOE JOE 3, a lot of those guys in the opening scene, in that big sequence when they're hunting Joe, had never been in any kind of movies before. And so getting to see a Bigfoot running through the trees, I think it helped them really get into character. And they were really, some of them were saying they were even a little bit freaked out, not knowing when Dale, who played him, was going to come running out. You know, they were like, it was kind of eerie out there.
Great. Yeah, no, that's the best way to scare people, is to actually scare people. So
Absolutely.
I love that. David, do you have any other questions? I have a bunch. I could talk for.
Yeah. So I'm curious that when filming this new TAHOE JOE 3, were there any how can I say this? Like, were there anything that were cut out because you wanted to keep it at a certain time? Do you feel there were any scenes that were cut out just because they weren't relevant, or, you know, just because you needed to keep it at a certain time?
No, we were sort of, Mike and I kind of went into this one saying, let's not worry about runtime at all. However it ends up is where it ends up. We had kind of, it's like, I sort of had thoughts it was going to go significantly longer than it did, but because it was just kind of playing out the way that it was, we just felt like, if it's naturally doing this, then let's just go ahead and leave it, and let's not force it. There were definitely certain sequences that I expected to be different than what we actually captured on camera. And a lot of that was not really because I was worried about time or whatever. A lot of it was getting on location and then going, you know, oh, this is not what I was really expecting, or this is not really safe for the actors to be doing. So then we would change some stuff a little bit. The whole ending of TAHOE JOE 3 was originally supposed to take place in those tunnels that we're in at some point in the movie. But because of, you know, all the people that were hiking through there, it was a really heavy, kind of populated public area. we had to quickly on the fly sort of change like what our ending is going to be, because we thought, crap, you know, we kind of wrote this thing to take place in the dark and in tunnels. We're here, but it's not really giving us an opportunity to do this. So we went, Mike and I sort of just started scouting around close by, and we were walking through an area just to see what we could find. And we just happened to find this great area with this like kind of little marsh, and it had this really big boulders backdrop. And it almost felt like a real movie set, because we had parking lots and cars and stuff all around us, but there was this big chunk of wilderness that was just like planted right in the middle up in a ski resort, and nobody could see into there because we had this like wall of rocks and trees. And so we thought, let's just go in there. So we did have to kind of quickly adjust what's going to happen in the scene. You know, when we originally wrote it, and you've got stuff in there saying, you know, Bigfoot's creeping through the tunnels and I'm doing this in the tunnels and blah, blah, blah. Now all of a sudden we're in an area where there's no tunnel. We definitely had to figure that out. But that's just indie filmmaking. You know, you got to be ready to just on the fly, make a change and be willing to roll with it. And you got to believe that it's okay. You can't go into it letting your audience see that you're disappointed because it's not what you were wanting or where you're at. So you have to just get yourself into the mindset of it's going to work. It's going to be fine. And then it worked out. It worked out great. It actually gave us some really, really pretty scenery to get to use at the end of the movie there, that probably a place I never would have seen had we not been forced to go look for it.
Perfect. Yeah, we just checked out a movie, Jabberjaw. It's on Found TV, and apparently they had like this whole like area scouted, and 2 days before they were going to go shoot, there was a wildfire, so they physically couldn't get there. They couldn't do anything with it, so they found this like rental place, and behind it had all this incredible scenery and, you know, backlot for basically a found footage film. So they like lucked out even more. So like it was even better than the original place that they'd scouted, and spent probably a lot of time figuring out the details and the minute information to get from point A to point B, really.
Yeah.
And that I couldn't imagine the stress involved to having to, especially if you're like really all in on, you know, making a film and the entire thing is in jeopardy because of such a horrific
natural
scary
disaster
thing, like natural disaster. Like it's an act of God really is is a thing that can stop production. So
yeah, you know, I watched Jabberjaw, and I think it was filmed not that far from where I'm at, because a lot of the scenery is very much, to me, reminiscent of the Sierra Nevada mountains or Northern California, up in this area. So I don't think it was that far from me where they did it, because I was just like, man, this looks so familiar. And I did wonder that, you know, I remember there being a moment in the film where the girls, she said something like, you know, what the heck are we doing camping? I didn't know we were going to do this. And she's like, well, I found this cool place that allows you to camp on the property. I was thinking in my head, like, I wonder if this was the filmmaker's way of saying, well, I wasn't able to rent this house, but I am going to be able to use the property. So let's just come up with this idea that we're camping on somebody's property. And what a genius way to deal with the cards that are dealt, right?
totally.
So,
yeah.
A lot of credit to them for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was really kind of excited to hear that, because otherwise there's no film, right? There's no film for us to, you know, have a conversation about it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's and it also, it goes to that, and I've always said that found footage is more like punk rock, right? Like it has a lot of parallels to that sort of movement. It's just that sort of do-it-yourself type attitude and, you know, ethos behind making something and taking something from literally nothing to make a tangible thing out of it. Like it's such a highly commendable thing, and independent filmmakers, as much as independent musicians, like realistically have that parallel of, you know, no one's gonna allow us to do this, so we're just gonna do it ourselves.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
so great.
Absolutely. That's the mindset we take into everything we do. It's kind of it's like, I like knowing the fact that we can go out with very minimal resources and shoot these things and get them released. And then I watch other companies with $100,000 budget, running these big Kickstarters, all this stuff, and they shoot their traditional movies, and it takes them 3-4 years to get it done. And then they do all this stuff on social media about, well, I'm looking for this kind of a distribution deal and this and this and this. And it just ends up in the exact same place mine did. And I didn't have to hardly spend anything. Got to do it with my friends. And in the time that it took them to do their one, I've probably cranked out 4. And it's like, I'm not clowning anybody for that, but there is definitely a little bit of I'd say I look at it and go, yeah, we allocate our time and our funds, I think, a little smarter than some of these other guys do. I get it. Traditional film takes significantly longer to do, but you just have to have that mentality of, I'm going to make this thing work. I'm going to do it. And I think there's a lot of creators out there that love to play the victim card of, it's so hard to make a movie and I don't have this and I don't have that. And I'm thinking, brother, I don't have half of what you think you don't have, and I still made my movie. So stop with the excuses. Let's go. Get your shit together. Film.
Love it. Yeah, for sure. And we're now seeing more places, especially for found footage films. We obviously have Found TV, which just celebrated its anniversary. It released TAHOE JOE 3 as a rental exclusive on there. What's been your experience like working with Found and Monica and Louis and everything related to that? How's that?
Oh, I love Monica and Louis. I had spoken with Louis quite a bit before Found even got started, because Louis was a producer on a film that we did through Horror Dads that my buddy Josh Brucker did, called The Woodman. And so Louis sort of already had some ties with us before they launched their streamer. So for us, it was wonderful because we already kind of had an established relationship. And now it's like, it's in such a great way. Like, I can just finish a movie. I can send Louis a message and say, hey, I got something new. And we just do it. There's no, pitching it and all the red tape and everything. Like, it's so fun because now I just feel like I'm working with friends, but it's been awesome. It's been really good. They treated us so well. That's why we wanted to give TAHOE JOE 3 to them for this initial run before we released it wide everywhere else. We thought, let's let a company that is doing, just found footage movies and bringing them into light and getting them streaming, like, let's let them have our movie that hopefully gets a lot of views first so they can kind of jump in on that with us. And in fact, last I talked to Louis, there may or may not be a Donkey Kong style TAHOE JOE video game through Found TV in the works.
Nice.
Yeah. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love that because they've done a work with Demon was the film that came out on there, and it had a video game element that I believe their son did a lot of the coding for it. So
yeah, I think he's going to be doing the one for this one too. And it was Louis' idea to kind of maybe model it with Joe at the top of a mountain throwing stuff at me or Mike, and then that way kind of get that Donkey Kong. And to me, I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. That fits the vibe.
That's so good. Oh, I love that so much. That's really cool. And with Found, obviously on there's the ultimate cut of TAHOE JOE, which is the inclusion of the first film and second film. How did that come about? And is there also maybe an ultimate cut with all 3 in the works?
So really the way it came about was, and I'll be brutally honest, we had licensed the first 2 films with a different distributor. Louis and Monica reached out because they wanted to put the films on their streaming service, and the distributor that had the license to the first 2 TAHOE JOE movies, I guess, took it personal that they were a competing found footage thing and wouldn't license the movies to them. And I took it personally because they're my friends, and I was like, we're going to be that petty. To me, it's like you're hurting me because they're going to pay me some of it, with the royalties that it makes. What is the point of holding on to these movies to not let them have it? It just felt so wishy-washy. So I went through my contract and basically saw that he only had the rights to the movies I sent him. He did not have the rights to a recut. So I smashed both movies together to make an ultimate cut that I could license to Louis and Monica so they could still show the movies. But it would essentially have to be its own thing. So, yeah, that's how I got around that. And I'm glad I did, because a lot of people actually enjoyed the ultimate cut, getting a chance to see both movies just in one shot instead of having to track them down. And I mean, it's not like it's that hard to find them both, but I think for a lot of folks, it was cool to just be able to click it once and then just see the whole thing play out. And with the twist in the second movie, it almost works a little nicer when you watch them back to back that close together, because you can really see the parallels, I think, that way.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. Wow. Yeah, I didn't realize that was the case.
Yeah.
Wow. And in that sort of realm, do you think there would be like a triple feature? I know you've got like another film that's like a double feature, so maybe this is like the Tahoe Joe trilogy in one sitting.
In one shot.
Kill Bill is now coming out with both like the super cut of both movies, and it's like 4 hours long. So
I think we probably won't. The one thing I do want to do is at some point get a boxed Blu-ray set though of all three movies, because I do have a Blu-ray that has 1 and 2 on the same disc, so there is a double feature Blu-ray, which is cool. But I would like to get some kind of a boxed set where you can get all three movies on there. Just because, like, as a physical media collector myself, any chance I can get something that packages them all together, I want it. And so at some point we'll have the Tahoe Joe, full collection, the trilogy collection. But yeah, I think I'll spare everybody the 4 hour ultimate cut, and they can go seek out the third one on their own.
Yeah. Brilliant. And especially as it comes to Found, you really could just watch the ultimate cut, and then the great thing about Found is that it'll just play a movie right after anyway. So people could make their own ultimate cut in
absolutely
a session.
Absolutely.
And for anyone that's curious on Tahoe Joe coming to Found as part of the catalog and not as a rental, is there any dates on when that's expected or in the future?
So we're looking at and we haven't like formally announced it yet, but I'll give you some breadcrumbs here to where we're going. We're looking at it dropping to streaming for free in December. Because it has been packaged and sent to Tubi and Roku Channel and Plex and Fossum and a whole bunch of other places. So it should start landing on more streaming services after the new year. So sometime in January. So we've been talking to Louis about kind of thinking about releasing it wide on Found starting in December at some point. And then it'll just be part of the stream from that point. And it'll still have an option to buy it. If people want to own it digitally, they will still be able to purchase it and add it to their library. But yeah, that should help. I think, there's a lot of folks that they don't want to rent. I get it. You pay for a streaming service. Maybe you decided to pay for Found because you don't want the ads, and it's hard to justify another fee. And times are tough. Like I totally get it. So we think that it had a fun little run as an exclusive rental, but it's getting close to time to just get it out there and get it to streaming and start getting some of that ad-based revenue on it now.
Nice. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, David, I'll let you if you have another question, because I have one that I think will be quite interesting.
Oh no, I was just going to add on to that. I totally understand too. Fees and stuff like that. Sometimes things are hard for people. But from like I guess from my perspective, looking at it, when I still get the ability to rent something somewhere, that's as close as I can get nowadays to walking into a Blockbuster and
right.
being able to rent something. So, and I grew up in that age where we had Hollywood Video, Blockbuster, mom and pop video stores where you can go in, make a weekend out of it with a family, friends, stuff like that. So it still gives me that little bit of a nostalgia when I can not find something right away. It came out on a streaming service for rent first. That I personally appreciate that, because that's as close as I can get to walking into a Blockbuster without having to walk into one.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree, because I get on Vudu a lot, and I want to, or Fandango, whatever it's called now, because I know it got bought out. But it is always cool to be like, oh, this is out there. And yeah, it might be a little bit of an expensive rental, but it's like you still have a little bit of an exclusive feel. Like I'm renting it, and it's going to go away after 24 hours or whatever, and I watched it, and then somebody can say, oh, that's great. Like, where did you watch it? And say, oh, well, it's not out yet. It's only available to rent. You have to rent it. And I don't know, there's just something about that is really fun. So I do agree with that. And then to piggyback off that, yeah, my first job was in a video rental store. So I vibe with that so much. And I just learned that there is a video rental store in Seattle, Washington, called Scarecrow Video, and they have the Tahoe Joe films in their rental thing, in their Bigfoot category. So I actually have found, I've learned that I've got a couple of my movies in an actual video rental store. And there's a huge Instagram page. His name's Dan from Death by Toys.
Oh yeah.
And Dan found Tahoe Joe in that store and rented it, and sent me a message on Instagram and just said, hey, I didn't realize that you followed me. I love this movie. I rented it at Scarecrow Video. And I'm like freaking out, because I'm like, first of all, I'm like, bro, I've followed your website forever. Like, this is so amazing. And now you're watching my movie, and I'm finding out it's in a video store for rent. Like, the whole thing was so cool. And by the way, I don't know if you guys have seen it around, but Death by Toys made some Tahoe Joe related stuff. So if you head over to the website, there is actual screen used Tahoe Joe fur that you can buy from Dan. That is from this costume back here.
Amazing.
So you got to plug Dan's site there for him a little bit.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I did notice that from the past, and I thought that was awesome. I didn't realize it was screen use or from the actual suit. I just thought it was like,
it's from this guy here, and it's cool. I don't know if, let me see if this one's got it. It might show up on camera. There's like sticks and actual pieces of the wilderness stuck in it from when we were out there. So we tried to make sure that we clipped hair that had come off while we were making the movie that had stuff from the set in it. So I think there's even one of them floating out there with like a half a damn pine cone stuck in there. So I mean, it's cool because you get some of this Sierra Nevada wilderness with your fur.
Brilliant. No, I love that. And sort of piggybacking off of the video rental sort of industry, one thing that I particularly like to do is so we drive from Canada down to Virginia, and we've driven there, we do it numerous times a year, and one of the main things that we like to do is try and figure out as many either physical media stores or just stores in general that would have movies. You get like a Second and Charles, or we've had such great luck, and one of the last trips that we took, there was like a mom and pop video rental store. It closed, like they changed their hours, they dropped their hours right down, obviously because people weren't going through, but they still had like they had this like huge mural painted on the side. I'll need to get the name of it, but they had a big mural painted on the side, and it had like a Tyrannosaurus from like Jurassic Park, and it had like Neo from the Matrix, and like all these crazy like Hollywood movies that were just painted on the side of this thing, and it was underneath a bridge, so it was like a train bridge, and then there was this random standalone movie rental store that was still kicking. And it's just such a great thing to see as you're driving through that, hours and hours of driving, stopping into some of these places and just getting that hit of nostalgia. Even in Canada, it's still pretty prominent. There's places in like London and Toronto that have some of these elements of video rentals. It's so good to see that still going on in the world.
Absolutely.
One other question that was on my mind just before we were talking about the movie rental. One thing I'm curious on to get your thoughts of, if this is anything you've ever really thought about, but if there was ever a cryptid from any sort of cryptozoology that would take on TAHOE Joe in a fight, who do you think it would be, and do you think TAHOE Joe could take them?
I feel like if he was going to tangle with anybody, it would probably be, something like like a dog man type character maybe, or a skinwalker, because we've got a pretty high Native American culture over here, and I know there's a lot of skinwalker stories and stuff. But I think Joe, I think he's king of the forest. I think he would rumble pretty hard, and he's an old man now, but I still think he would say, you know what, I've been here for a long time. You're going to leave me alone. And I think he'd win decisively.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'm not biased or anything.
One thing I did think of would be that'd be quite interesting would be a TAHOE Joe versus Mothman type, because I mean, although he's king of the ground and of the forest, but how does he do in the air against a flying cryptid? Would be my query.
Yeah, my buddy Josh through Horror Dads, he did a Mothman movie, but his Mothman was much more on the cerebral kind of psychological side, which was cool because Josh wanted to play really into that lore of the whole Indrid Cold thing. Now, I don't know if you guys saw, Jesse Pollock did one that played at Unnamed Footage Fest 24-hour deal called the Point Pleasant Tapes.
No, but we have a copy of it that we've yet to check out, but we're excited.
I hope you guys watch that ASAP. I've watched it twice now. It's not only is it a phenomenal faux doc, the way that he put it together, but when he does lay into his Mothman stuff and his mythos and all that, it is just a kick-ass time, and I would put it way up there as one of the better found footage movies I've seen, especially cryptid creature feature ones. So absolutely, yeah, definitely give that one a watch. And they do some really cool stuff too. It was really cool to see what Josh did with his Mothman story, and then Jesse's Mothman story. It's still based around the same area and the same cryptid, but just how they went about it was so different with what they wanted to do, because it just seems like Mothman in general is so kind of it's like, I don't know, to me he's almost more of like fear, or like an idea of fear, more than he is like a physically manifested creature. I know that people see this creature, but there's all these different ways to interpret him, and it was neat to see these two different filmmakers and kind of take their very different approaches to it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we're really excited about Point Pleasant Tapes. I've heard really good things. It's definitely on our ever growing list of found footage. I feel like since we've started doing this, we've just found so many more variants of found footage, and so many like independent filmmakers that are striving for this, yourself included, which is, it's so great to see, and we're such big fans of found footage in general, that when we see things that we get blown away by, it's just so refreshing. One of my favorite found footage movies, which I find doesn't get a lot of love, is Phoenix Forgotten. I don't know if you've seen that, but
I still have not seen that one.
Oh, for me, it's probably one of the best I think I've seen, and yeah, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's sort of also kind of grounded in that reality related to the Phoenix Lights phenomenon, where it sort of starts with that and builds upon it in their own way, in like a faux doc type way. So yeah, definitely recommend that. It's cool.
I was showing John yesterday that we have these video stores chain here called CD Exchange. So they have music, movies, things like that, new and used. And I actually picked up a copy of Phoenix Forgotten yesterday.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, hell yeah. Nice. I didn't know you got it. That's cool. Yeah, sick.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to add that one to my list for sure.
Yeah, it's great, and it was produced by Ridley Scott. He was kind of the guy that one of the guys that wrote it also was the writer for the Maze Runner franchise. Like that's sort of his wheelhouse, and he was pitching an idea to Scott Free, which is the production company, and they're like, "Well, is there anything else you're working on?" And like, "Well, we have this idea of found footage close encounters that we've been thinking of," and they're like, "Oh, really? Wow, tell us more about that." And then sort of brought them in and showed them off like all of like Alien original concept art and like Geiger stuff that was like that had never been seen like in his office, and like all this just everything. He's like, our minds were blown, like kids in a candy store type thing. And that was always our thing, like found footage close encounters. And I think when you see it, you're like, hell yeah, that was that was definitely that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out for sure.
For sure. David, I think your question can be our last one, and then we can give you back your day there, Dylan.
Okay.
No problem. Yeah. So one fun one I always like to ask at the end of every show or recording per podcast is, if you were about to sit down for the evening, during the day, whatever, you're going to sit down, you're going to watch a movie. What would be your favorite snack to pair with movies?
I'm gonna probably say what a lot of people have said in the past, and I'm cool with it. But I'm a pizza guy. If I'm watching movies, I want a big box of pepperoni pizza in front of me, some ranch to dip it in, maybe a cold beer. If not, at least I have to have a Dr. Pepper with pizza. So,
Nice.
but yeah, I'm a pizza guy. If I'm sitting down for movie night, I want pizzas in the house.
Hell yeah.
That's always a good pairing. Going back to the whole video store thing, growing up as a kid, it was a tradition every weekend, living with my dad, that, we'd go get some pizza, we'll go down to the video store, see what's new, see what's not new. He's kind of looking at new action movies. I'm in the horror section, trying to figure out which cover has the weirdest, best looking cover on the videotape. And that's what I'm picking. He's picking what he's picking. We'll end up watching them throughout the weekend. But I mean, popcorn too is another good one. But yeah. I mean, pizza is just very nostalgic to, the whole video store thing. So that's a really good pairing.
Yep. There was a video store in the little town I grew up in, and right next door was a pizza place. And it was like still called a pizza parlor back then. It was like, you almost buffet style, and so my mom would go in and order pizza, and my sister and I would be in the video store grabbing movies. And back then it was 5 movies for 5 days for $5. So we would get our stack, and it would be like, my parents would usually pick a movie that the two of them were going to watch, and then my sister and I each got 2 movies to get. And same thing, I was always looking for the cover with like the creepiest monster on it. That usually ended up being the cover being way cooler than the movie ever was. Or I was always looking at the back trying to figure out, like, is there any nudity in this? And if there is my mom going to know? But yeah, I have that nostalgia too. It's just, there's just something about like gorging on pizza, even when I don't want another slice, but it's right there. So I go ahead and do it anyway. And I'm watching scary movies, and I just, I miss it because I don't feel like my kids are going to have the same thing, because stuff is just digested and spit out so quick now. It's like every streaming service has a new movie, and you watch it and you forget about it. 30 seconds later, the next one's being advertised. And I miss the anticipation of waiting and waiting and waiting for a movie to release from the theater onto home video, and then having to wait to get it from the video store because somebody else already had it, and you're hoping it shows up, and you call, and do you have a copy of whatever? Okay, I want to reserve it. And then I'm begging my mom, like, we got to go get it. I just, I long for those days. And I totally, now at my age, I just turned 40 last week, and I swear I'm starting to turn into my father, where I'm learning like why he had such a love affair with his records and music the way that he did. And now with me, I'm feeling that way about VHS movies and, and stuff. So good times.
Yeah.
The best,
Yeah,
the
definitely.
best of times.
Yeah.
I would say. But yeah, Dillon, thank you so much. A happy belated birthday as well.
Thank you very much, guys.
So yeah, hope you had a great time. But yeah, really, this is just your time to say if there's anything that you're working on, where people can find you, and the other stuff that you've worked on in the past. Take it away.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a busy year. So we did Tahoe Joe 3. As I was saying, it should be releasing to streaming through Found in December, and then hopefully starting to hit places like Tubi in January, February next year. So it's close. Everything else is on Tubi or Amazon Prime is where you can find The Summer We Died. The Summer We Died has actually finally been licensed by Tubi, so it should be showing up this month. I think in like 2 weeks it should be on there. And then I shot a episode of Midnight Feature Season 2. This little alien back here might be a little indicator on what I decided to do. So I just did that, just wrapped that a couple of weeks ago. Midnight Feature Season 2 should be dropping sometime early next spring. It's like 5 or 6 episodes. Everybody kind of upped their game this time, which was cool. The first season is on Tubi, Found TV, Amazon. And then, as if I wasn't busy enough, I shot an entire feature sort of in secret in the shadows of Tahoe Joe 3. I was kind of letting Tahoe Joe 3 take all the publicity and the attention. But I actually shot a feature that is fully done. And it will be world premiering at a festival next year. I just can't say what festival and when. But it will be world premiering next year early. And then from there, I'll figure out what I'm going to do with it. But it is my most serious film I've ever done. I took all of my love of, I mean, you guys know in the Joe movies or anything else you've seen, I like B movies. I like to have some humor. I like all that. This is very, very deadly serious. It's my most dramatic acting I've ever done, so I really had to push myself, which was cool. It is a kind of a throwback to a particular theme that was kind of prominent in the 70s. So I think a lot of folks that are privy to 70s horror might realize where I went with this that hasn't been done in a long time. And I thought it'd be really cool because to my knowledge, I don't believe anybody's done this in found footage. And then lastly, it's my love letter to Bone Tomahawk, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So it's really fun.
Yeah.
It was a bitchin' movie to make, and it's like a 4-person cast, and we went into some really scary spots out in the desert at night, and I got to make my scariest film ever. So I'm really excited about putting that one out there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it.
Dude.
I will get you guys. I'll get you guys an early link.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're excited. And then when that comes out, you're more than welcome to hop back on and talk about it. Absolutely, Dillon. Thank you for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I had so much fun. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm so glad you let me slide in your DMs and say, I want to be on the show.
Well, we appreciate it, and
Absolutely.
wish you all the best. Congratulations on the success of Tahoe Joe, all 3, and we can't wait to see what you do next.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.